some halachot, and if we have time, we will run through everything we have learned. Okay, we spoke out in our previous class that although a person can always kosher utensils from meat to dairy or dairy to meat, or anything that's not kosher, you can kosher it. There is a prohibition according to the Ashkenazi custom to kosher anything that's meat to dairy. Okay? That means that one is not supposed to do that. The reason for this is simple. That means like this. According to this Ashkenazi custom, it is prohibited to kosher utensils from meat to dairy. This is due to the concern that one may do this frequently and then inadvertently use one utensil for the wrong one. If you know, for example, that you have this soup ladle, and sometimes you use it for your chicken soup, and then you kosher it a day later, and you use it for your dairy broccoli soup or whatever you're having. So then you may end up, so you koshered it in between. So in theory, that's fine, right? But if you do this frequently, then at one point you may just not be aware what the status of this is. Is it koshered? Is it meaty? Is it dairy? And you may inadvertently use the utensil for the wrong one. So therefore, there is a general rabbinical ban on koshering utensils from meat to dairy, but there are 7 different exceptions to this rule. Meaning, certain scenarios you may change the status of a utensil from meat to dairy or from dairy to meat. Okay? Again, we are right now holding by finalizing the halacha, so these are the last details that I want to share with you. So, number 1, if you're koshering a utensil for Passover, okay? We know that for Passover you need to either have specific dishes or you need to kosher it for Pesach. So if you kosher something from meat that was meaty, for example, for all year round use, and you want to kosher it for Passover, so once you koshered it for Passover, then you can also change the status of it. You can use it for dairy for Passover, that's fine. Okay? That's one case.
If you kosher for Passover and after,
yeah,
or you can choose if you wanted to.
Yeah. Meaning you have a fleishik utensil, okay, a meaty utensil. So normally we don't want you to kosher it just for the sake of making it dairy. But once you're doing it for the purpose of koshering it for Pesach, you're welcome to use and change the status of that. Okay, that's one thing. Koshering utensils that became non-kosher. Okay, there you go. For example, if you have a utensil that's not kosher, it became not kosher for whatever reason, so you have to kosher it anyway if you want to use it. Once you kosher it to make it kosher, so you can also change the status of it. Okay? Meaning, what we're talking about is to exclusively say like, hey, I like this spoon, and I want to kosher, it's kosher, nothing wrong with it, but it's dairy right now. I want to start using it for meaty. You can't just kosher something to make it meaty. That's what we're saying. Once you're koshering it for Passover, anyway, you can change the status. If it became not kosher and you're koshering it anyway, then you can change the status of it. No problem at all. Okay? You also may kosher something to make it into parv status. Some people have 3 types of dishes in their kitchen. I don't. Some people have that. Never ending. So Jews are never ending. You can just make things more and more and more complicated. You can have dairy dishes, you can have parv dishes, and you can have meaty dishes. Okay? So if you want, you are allowed to make something parv. So if you have something that's meaty, you can make it parv. And once you've been using it for a while parv, then you can change it to the other type of food. Again, that's the third way of changing the status of something. Okay? Another case where you can't change the status if a utensil is not being used for a whole year. That means if you have that ladle, you're just sitting there in a cupboard, in your kitchen cupboard, whatever it is, or your drawer, and you realize you have 2 ladles that are meaty, and one of them you have not used for at least a year, and you need one for dairy. So you think to yourself, why should I go ahead and buy a new one for dairy? Why should I go ahead and buy a new one for dairy? I should just kosher this. So if it's not been used for a year, you can do so and change it from meaty to dairy. Okay. Another example is that an oven very often is also koshered from dairy to meat. Okay? Now this is an example of something that I will actually speak now a little bit about ovens. Although we normally have this rule that I just spoke out, that we don't kosher things from dairy to meat, but an oven, a lot of people have a custom to kosher. Okay? Now, that is permitted to do, because ovens are a little bit more complicated. Okay? One of the most common problems on Basar BeChalav, meat and dairy, is the usage of an oven for both meat and dairy. Having 2 ovens is expensive. Although I will tell you that if you have the means, and if you can afford it, you're about to design your own kitchen. Let's say you do. You have the means. You can afford it. I'm telling you that this is somewhere to splash out to get your 2 ovens. This is not a waste of money because you'll make your life significantly easier. To have 1 oven for meat and dairy can be sometimes a pain in the neck. It could be complicated because every time you want to, you use it for meat now, so then you have to kosher it if you want to use it for dairy. And that's a whole thing. Okay, so that's not an easy thing. How do you kosher an oven for meat and dairy, by the way, guys?
Self-clean, huh?
Oh, so if you have a self-clean setting, so that's the best. Okay? But do you know what a self-clean setting is?
Yeah, it says it goes really hot.
It gets really hot. Do you guys have that in Sydney?
Never seen it. No.
I've also
I haven't been in that many Jewish homes.
Yeah, no. You what?
I haven't been in that many Jewish homes in Sydney.
Yeah, no, but I think it's not something that only Jewish homes have, the self-clean setting. I think it's something that certain ovens just come with a self-clean setting.
I'm sure like every oven, every fridge now has a Shabbat mode.
That's something else. Well, like planned out for the next 150 years or something like that.
Okay,
This monument of each Shabbos, exactly when Shabbos comes in and goes out, Yom Tov and everything else.
Yeah, no, that's not a thing.
What?
I've never seen that.
That they have that.
Yeah, okay.
Obviously, I mean they use technology for all those
Obviously.
things nowadays, and it will make sure that your light and fridge is switched off just before Shabbos and goes straight on back after Shabbos without you having to do anything about it.
Crazy.
That's crazy, isn't it? Okay, I don't have those shticks and tricks, and we manage without them. Okay, so I just have my light bulb out the fridge. I don't have a light in my fridge.
So if you don't have a self-clean oven, how do you kosher it though?
Great question. Okay, so let's say there's 2 scenarios I'm talking about. First of all, an oven that has been used for non-kosher. Okay, that's scenario 1. And then an oven that has been used for kosher, but has been used for meat, and you want to change it to dairy. Okay, that's scenario 2. Do you guys understand the difference?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you want to kosher something from non-kosher to kosher, the only way to do that is with what we call libun chamor. Libun chamor is with the extreme hot temperatures of like 450 degrees Celsius, about 800-900 Fahrenheit. The only way you can do that is either an oven that has a self-clean setting and put a self-clean cycle on, okay? And if you don't have an oven with a self-clean setting, then the only other way to do it is with a blowtorch. Now, using a blowtorch is difficult and can be a fire hazard. You can hurt yourself, chas v'shalom, and you can also ruin your oven. So you have to know what you're doing. So therefore, koshering an oven that has been used for non-kosher to kosher is challenging if you don't have a self-clean setting. Okay? Now you can always get people to do it for you who have experience with that. There's generally people who can do that, but that's like a bit of a challenging thing.
No, pizza oven is probably you can self-clean it so easy. Pizza ovens, they go pretty hot.
Those brick ones?
Yeah. So if you want to use for meat, you just turn it on.
Probably, you can do that. Yeah, with fire, of course, yeah. Now, an oven in scenario 2 that has been used for meat and you want to change it to dairy, so for that we can use libun kal. Libun kal, what does kal mean? Light. Chamor means stringent. So libun chamor is the high temperature of about 900 Fahrenheit. You're working Fahrenheit or Celsius? Celsius, about 450 Celsius. Libun kal is good enough up to 250 degrees Celsius, which most regular ovens go to that temperature. They'll go to 250 degrees Celsius. So that is what you could do. You can do 250 degrees Celsius, and that is fine. Okay?
So you can kosher, you can go between meat and dairy with the oven pretty easy.
Yeah, but the ways to do that is you first have to clean your oven.
Yeah.
You gotta wait 24 hours, just like the regular koshering rules. And after you waited 24 hours, you gotta turn it on for an hour on 250 degrees. Okay? Once that's done, your oven is kosher. Okay?
But
Now-
isn't it glass in an oven? I think you couldn't kosher glass.
Do
It's
glass.
plastic.
I don't know. The outside of an oven is glass. Is it
Like
glass?
this little screen thing.
What? The
Like
dial?
like to look into the oven, like
That glass thing, right?
yeah.
So that thing, that's a good question. How can you kosher that? It doesn't absorb, it does absorb. That's a good point. So the things that will be koshered are the actual walls of the oven, that's metal, and the trays. They're also going to be koshered. The glass, so it could be that since that the food is not really touching the glass, therefore it's not really a problem, but it's a good point you're raising.
And what about, I was heard that you can just like wrap it in foil, like 2 sheets of foil.
Oh, that's always fine. So that's always important to understand that whatever environment you're in, if you use a non-kosher oven, okay, you can always double wrap your food. Okay, double wrap means, for example, if you have a foil tin, you have your food inside, so you first cover it, the top of it, that's covering number 1, and then you can wrap it up, the whole thing from both sides again, top, bottom, and sides, and then you're good to go. Just keep in mind that heating up food that way takes a lot longer. Okay, so you have to just keep that in mind. It will take a while for it to get through. Great. So in any case, so that is what we have to say about ovens. Ovens may be kosher. That's why we kosher it, and it could be a great investment to get 2 ovens. Now I don't have the space in my kitchen for 2 proper ovens because 2 proper ovens are big. My oven is this big, right? Regular oven. What I do have is I use for dairy. I have one of those toaster ovens.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So obviously they don't bake as well, but they do the job. So that's what I normally do. I have one for meaty and one for dairy. I could kosher my oven. It's not that I don't want to do it. It's just easier and just better just to have your own toaster oven, and that's what I just do. It's just easier. So that's always a great
Did
option.
you talk about microwaves or no?
How to kosher them?
Yeah, like microwaves, like I know some people, like my cousins live in Israel, are very religious. They have one microwave, but there's a way where you can put something above the food every time, right? So you can use it. You heard of that?
The covering.
Or covering up on the food, the plastic covering to put on the food in the microwave.
it's not-
That's if you want to steam it as well.
Steam it, but also like it's like you can use it for both foods rather than just because then the steam doesn't absorb.
Although it's not a double covering, you're saying.
What do you say that again?
Although it's not a double covering.
Yeah, oh, it's not double.
That's
So microwaves you
interesting.
can use both. I don't know. Some people.
If you have a double covering, then you can. Double covering will always work. Yeah.
But if you don't double cover it, you can always
The
take it.
single covering is a dispute in the opinion between the opinions. I can check that out for you if you would like.
But if I don't cover it at all, I can only use it for one.
Yeah. If you don't cover food in a
Is that
microwave,
very leniency or it's very, very strict?
I mean, it's the same like using an oven. Your microwave has become meaty. So if you put dairy stuff in a microwave now, so then you're using a meaty microwave for your dairy food. So, but the way you can kosher that, again, you can clean it, you wait 24 hours, and you put a cup of water in there for 2-3 minutes, and you're good. It's kosher. So that's the way to kosher it. Okay? But double coverings are always fine. Double coverings always work, and that's fine. In theory, just to explain it a little bit, there are 3 different things that will actually make your oven. Why is an oven problematic to use a dairy oven for meat? What's really happening? We spoke many times about the pot. Use a pot that is meaty and you put dairy food in there. So we understand there's food particles that have been absorbed in a pot, and because you're cooking with liquid, so those meaty food particles, for example, that are in a pot will go into the liquid, into your food that is dairy. And that's a problem that we can understand. Taste particles from the pot go into the opposite type of food. There you have Basar BeChalav, meat and dairy is a problem. Okay. Now how does that work really in an oven? Because in an oven you put, let's say, food on a tray. Okay? And that oven has been used for meat until now. And now you're putting something dairy, you're putting a cheesecake in the oven. So how does the meaty oven actually affect your dairy food? How does that work?
Yeah, I don't know. I was thinking about this before.
Because it doesn't really touch the walls in the same way that it does in a pot, that it actually food particles come into food.
They
So
smell
how
like
does that work? Oh,
Yeah.
so Halacha tells us there are 3 different ways that an oven can affect the food. Number 1 is contact. I'll briefly explain it. Number 2 is what we call reicha, which is aroma. And number 3 is zeh, which is steam. Okay? Steam. 3 different ways that an oven affects food. So contact, let's explain that. One may definitely not place meat and dairy food at the same time in an oven when they touch each other. That's obviously clear. If they do touch each other, it will result in a part of the food or the entire food becoming prohibited as it becomes Basar BeChalav. So that's number 1, contact. But that obviously is only applicable if you have meat and dairy together in the oven. For example, 2 trays on top of each other, you have your milky lasagna on top and it's dripping cheese, hot cheese on top of your steak that's on the tray underneath.
No.
That's like, you just really messed it up.
The cheese melting on the meat.
You'd rather have the other way around. You're saying, at least have a steak. Between both of them, you'd rather keep the steak and just chuck the lasagna out.
Yeah, or just be able to eat it.
Exactly. So that's a real problem, you know, if you're doing that. In any case, so that's a problem with contact. Another issue is the aroma. The Gemara has a discussion whether the aroma can affect the food. Now, obviously, aroma is a smell. Okay, so the smell of the lasagna that obviously goes into your meaty food, that can also cause problems. Okay, that's number 2. And number 3 is the steam. The steam also, meaning you have meat steam and cheese steam from the cheesecake or from lasagna all going in an oven, all getting mixed up, all getting together, and then that steam again is being absorbed in the foods. So that's also a problem. So these are the 3 ways that meat and dairy can affect each other in an oven.
And is it also getting dissolved in the walls in the tray, or like?
No, so that's the thing. I mean, it could be that once it gets absorbed in the walls, maybe, and if it's not cleaned properly, or there is splashes in the oven all over the place, you know, and then afterwards you put something in so the steam can, you know, have things go into your food afterwards. That is a general way that an oven affects your food. It's not because the same way as a pot, where we actually understand clearly that food particles from the wall of the pot actually go into your food. Here it's affected by three ways: either contact, or steam, or aroma. Now, I would like to note that contact you generally don't have unless you put meat and dairy at the same time in the oven. Contact between meat and dairy is only if you have meat and dairy in the oven. So if you put them after each other in the oven, in theory that should not be a problem, right? But the steam is still applicable if you have splashes in the oven, and it's still applicable in the oven, the aromas, if you just bake it. So therefore the general rule is, although there could be certain cases leniencies, for example, if a person did it in a certain way that mistakenly put meat and dairy in the oven together, call a rabbi before you throw out the food, because you may be able to eat it in certain cases. Now, I'm not telling you to do that, but if it happened, before you throw out the food, make sure to call a rabbi, because it could be that a food could be safe if you tell him exactly what details happened and how it happened. Okay, therefore, the halacha generally is that we will never ever use an oven that's for dairy, for meat, or meat to dairy. Either we have a meat oven and a dairy oven, or a dairy toaster oven, or whatever your main usage of the oven is, and or you can kosher the oven. These are basically the best ways to do it. Okay, and with that, I think we basically covered everything we need to know about Basar BeChalav. We spoke about the three prohibitions of Basar BeChalav in Torah: eating, cooking, and deriving benefit. We spoke about the Torah prohibitions that only applicable to animals and milk from a kosher animal that's domestic. We spoke this out. We spoke about rabbinical halachas of waiting time. We spoke about the reason why we wait. We spoke about the different customs. We spoke about the Aish yeshiva has the custom to wait within the 6 hour, which is 5.5 hours. That's what we do here. And then we spoke about using knives, using opposite foods. You have leftover food from the milky meal to the fleshig meal, or vice versa. We spoke about tablecloths. We spoke about eating meat at a table that you have dairy on, or dairy on a table and you're eating meat, eating with different people at the table, picking their food. We spoke about oven use, and that is basically all you need to know about the halachas.
These tips,